Hi, my name is Shen. I run the Swagger Salon and also Backdoor Bodega. So I sell t-shirts by day and I make cocktails at night. This place started in 2014. Before that, I didn't really plan on opening a store because for me, I've always felt that having a brick and mortar store in this kind of in this time and age is a bit of a waste of money, I feel. But I had this invitation to speak at this TEDx event in 2013 in Penang, and one of the attendees there happened to be the landlord of this place. So he basically runs a Hin Bus Depot. So he saw me there and he found out about my brand and he approached me and he kind of offered me a space here. So what he proposed was, because he said he was going to develop the space, Hin Bus Depot, his future plans, and then he told me like he's going to bring in a cafe, which eventually became Bricklin. And yeah, we were the first two tenants in this vicinity of Hin Bus Depot. This was in 2013, 2014. A very good potential, you know, a place that's not commercialized and it's a whole storefront. Like, I believe that's what streetwear is about. You need to have a storefront and not a shelf in a supermarket or a shopping mall, you know. Yeah. I started making t-shirts because I think it's pretty much a designer thing. You know, like every designer somehow has their own t-shirt brand or t-shirt design. So for me, t-shirt designing started in high school. I used to draw my own t-shirts with like Dylon fabric paints, but the whole brand didn't start with a t-shirt. Actually, it started with caps because I felt at that point, with the little money I had, it didn't make sense to try to risk it all on t-shirts when there are already so many other t-shirt brands going around. So the whole clothing brand started with the cap, basically, the Lansi cap, and which was a fitted cap to basically fill the gap between, you know, a local brand and back then when there was no New Era caps, no official New Era distributors in Malaysia. So that was the whole idea. So I started with caps, and then eventually, after selling the caps and making some money, I made t-shirts.
So, we're having a Lansi house party. First event by Lansi. Basically, we are having this in conjunction with the release of our Q1 collection.
Back then, I think when we started like the Swagger Salon, it was also the same time as a lot of other local brands. So I felt that it was a boom in local clothing, mainly due to the passion that we all had in wanting to create a local clothing scene, right? We're doing it because we wanted to put out t-shirts that we love, that's related to the local streetwear scene. But over the years, especially after 2015, 2016, I felt that the shift in the local streetwear interest slowly moved back towards the international scene with the rise of Off-White and, you know, the popularity of Supremes and all that in Palace. So the difference is that right now, either the local brands are trying to emulate what the international brands are doing, rather than coming up with clothing that's directly influenced from their local roots, I would say, compared to what we were doing back then. And I think the problem that we had as the Swagger Salon as a clothing brand was to find our spot. Whether do we cater to our existing audience who's already growing up? It's been like almost 10 years, right? So do we cater to our audience who's more grown up now, or do we try to stay as a young streetwear brand that's targeted to college kids, which is something that I totally cannot relate to right now after all these years.
Thanks for coming down, everyone. It means a lot to me, it means a lot to everybody at the Swagger Salon. I hope you guys are having a pretty good time. Thanks.
2017, for the very first time, I think the Swagger Salon made a loss after like 7-8 years in the business. It was the very first time. So, but also at the same time, I started Backdoor Bodega towards the end of 2016. So, throughout the past couple of years, I think I was struggling to find a place, or I mean creatively, on how or where to bring the Swagger Salon forward and the Lansi brand forward. So, I kind of took a hiatus for about a year. I took a break, a creative break from designing clothes. So I kind of ventured into a couple of other different things that's not clothing related, such as Backdoor Bodega, which is a cocktail bar behind the Swagger Salon. And I've also got involved with setting up a cafe called Norm in Penang, and as well as Boudoir, which is a furniture shop slash cocktail bar. The change in environment, jumping from clothing to F&B, kind of rejuvenated the creative side of me, because I'm doing things that are totally different from what I've been doing for the past 10 years. And I guess this really helped in the creative process, in the designing process, and the branding process and the running of businesses, right, for the F&B, because it's really different from clothing. So I guess for the past 2 years, the things that have kept me busy have also contributed to me coming up with more new ideas and new directions for the Swagger Salon, which I would not have had if I just kept on pushing the brand relentlessly.
So the second one is coming from Penang.
I think one of the few highlights throughout the career, the ones that I've always been shouting about, like, you know, been on TV, we got censored on TV, been on the newspapers, got censored on newspapers as well, things like that, got bootlegged in Pasar Malams locally and abroad. But I feel like the key highlights in doing like the Swagger Salon and Lansi over the past few years is the little details that people tell me that they encounter in their lives, like a customer going to Phuket, I think, or somewhere in Thailand, and meeting an Australian dude who actually recognized the brand. He went up there, hey, I know that brand is from Malaysia, right? Yeah, and also like people like Lucas from Pastel Morta, who went to Indonesia. He got stopped at the immigration simply because that guy recognized the Thai ball cap that he was wearing. So it was all these little bits and pieces that people tell me like throughout the years that really makes me love what I do, because it gives me that sense of satisfaction that, you know, even though my brand is not plastered all over the world, it's not plastered on billboards or all over the place, but at least, you know, it's getting to places and people can connect with the brand and they know the brand internationally in little details like this. So the first REBOOT collection, it's not really much of a creative collection. It's more like an reintroduction of the brand. It's reminiscent of what we've been putting out previously. Simple t-shirts, colorful t-shirts. In the meantime, I'll be working on more creative drops. Notably, the first one that comes after this collection would be a collaboration with Against Lab. So it's something that Sean and I have been talking about for quite a while, which was initially supposed to be Lansi's final collection, as a, you know, passing the baton, old love, new love thing with Against Lab, which he talked me out of it. So now it's going to be a proper nice collection where I do my take on an Against design, and Against does their own remake on a Swagger Salon design, a Lansi design. Yeah, so that's the collection that comes right after this drop, and there's going to be a couple of more collabs and releases that follows through. I would like to think like over the past almost 10 years, Lansi has somehow made an impact in the local scene. But for me, I feel the important points is that, you know, that if the brand has somewhat influenced another brand to do what they do, to venture into the clothing business or non-clothing business, if there's any influence whatsoever, I felt like that's already a plus point for me, because a brand can only live like that long, right? Living beyond the brand is usually through some other person, whether it's the community, whether it's other brands that you have influenced. So I like to think that the brand has somewhat gave influence to some other local brands and also non-local brands, I suppose, in encouraging people to do what they do today. I don't know how many more drops or how many more years I'll be doing this with the Lansi brand, but I really still want to bring the Swagger Salon onward as a brand, because it's always been on the back seat. It's always been like the Swagger Salon is just the shop and then everything else comes under it. Still feel there's a lot potential, a lot of things that I can do with the Swagger Salon, which isn't just limited to clothing. But for the Lansi brand, we'll see how it goes. I mean, I feel that it's really an attitude brand from the start, so I really didn't want to treat it as a generic clothing brand where there are seasonal drops, you know, there are collections to adhere to, you know, things that I must do as a clothing brand. But if I still have the attitude, you know, if I still have the inspiration to keep on releasing stuff, I would definitely still go on. But at some point of time, I would still like to call it quits while the brand is still known for what it is before it becomes irrelevant, because I feel that you can quit when you're ahead. To re-quote the Batman quote, right? You either kill your brand as a hero brand or you live long enough to see it become irrelevant, so to speak.